A very warm welcome to all of you. I, Taru, was working as an assistant professor in IIMT group of colleges, Greater Noida. Today, I'm going to represent a video lecture on a topic, cardiovascular system. In this lecture, we will going to cover anatomy and physiology of heart, blood circulation, which covers systemic circulation, pulmonary circulation, and coronary circulation. Then cardiac cycle and conduction system of heart. So we will start with heart. Heart is a conical, hollow, musculotendinous organ which lies between the lungs and behind the sternum. It is about 10 centimeter long and weighs about 300 grams. In an adult, the base of heart is above and apex is below. Generally, but we see that base we call as below and apex we call above. But here it is opposite. The base of heart is above and apex is below. Moving to the next slide. Structure of heart. You can see in this image as well. Here, our heart is made up of 3 layers. The outer covering or outer layer is known as pericardium layer. This pericardium layer is made up of 2 layers, which is known as visceral pericardium layer and parietal pericardium layer. There is a cavity present between these 2 layers, and this cavity is filled with pericardial fluid. Moving to the middle layer. Middle layer is known as myocardium. This myocardium layer is made up of muscle fibers. Now move to the inner layer. Inner layer is known as endocardium. Moving to the next slide. Chambers of heart. Our heart is made up of 4 chambers. 2 chambers present on the right side and 2 chambers present on the left side. The chambers which are present on right side are known as right atrium and right ventricle. Same as chambers which are present on the left side are known as left atrium and left ventricle. Moving to the next slide. These 4 chambers are formed by 2 septa. Septa is something which divides the heart chambers. So, right atrium chamber and left atrium chamber are separated by interarterial septum. Same as right ventricle chamber and left ventricle chamber. These are separated by interventricular septum. Now, the opening between these 2 chambers, it means right chamber, right atrium and right ventricle. The opening between right atrium and right ventricle is guarded by tricuspid valve. Same as the opening between left atrium and left ventricle is guarded by mitral valve. This mitral valve is also known as bicuspid valve. Now, tendinous cord arise from lower border of these valves. Here you can see in this image, this is mitral valve. From the border of this valve, tendinous cord arises. Tendinous cord is also known as chordae tendineae. These chordae tendineae are attached to papillary muscles, and these papillary muscles arise from ventricular valves. Moving to the next slide, blood vessels attached to the heart. Right atrium receives superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. This is superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. So, right atrium receives these 2 vena cava and they carry deoxygenated blood to heart. From right ventricle, pulmonary artery arises. This is right ventricle chamber, and from here pulmonary artery arises. It carries venous blood to lungs for oxygenation or for purification of blood. Moving to the next slide, the left atrium. This is the left atrium chamber, and this left atrium receives 4 pulmonary veins, and these 4 pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood to heart. Now, from left ventricle chamber, aorta arises. Aorta supply oxygenated blood to all parts of the body. Moving to the next slide, blood supply to the heart. Blood is supplied by right and left coronary arteries. They arise from aorta. So basically, aorta supplies oxygenated blood to all parts of body. But aorta further subdivided into left coronary artery and right coronary artery. From these arteries, blood is supplied. Then venous blood of heart is drained by coronary sinus. Venous blood, superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, they carry venous blood. So venous blood of heart is drained by coronary sinus, and this coronary sinus directly opens in right artery. Moving to the next slide, nerve supply to the heart. Heart is supplied by sympathetic and vagus nerve. Here you can see in this image, sympathetic cardiac nerve. It is responsible for increased heart rate and also for contraction of heart. Vagus nerve, that is parasympathetic nerve, which is responsible for decreased heart rates. Branches from these nerves pass to the sino-auricular node, which is also known as SA node. Moving to the next slide, arterial and venous system. The heart pumps blood into arteries. The arteries divided and subdivided and finally ends in capillaries. The capillaries later unite to form veins. The veins return blood to the heart. हेलो, हाँ जी सर. सर वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस नहीं है मेरा, मैंने पॉज किया हुआ है अभी. हाँ सर, एक्चुअली यहाँ पे खाली नहीं रहने देंगे ना कुछ काम कराए जाएंगे. सर अभी पहले तो नहीं जा रहे हैं आप? ठीक है, मैं उससे पहले ही रिटर्न कर दूंगी आपको. ठीक है, ओके सर, थैंक यू. Now, moving to the next slide. Arterial and venous system. So, here you can see in this image, arteries carry oxygenated blood away from the heart. This is artery. So, these carry oxygenated blood away from the heart. Veins carry deoxygenated blood to the heart. So now, capillaries are minute channels. They receive blood from smaller arteries. Smaller arteries means arterioles. They receive blood from these arterioles and deliver into veins, which is known as venules. Moving to the next slide, arteries. Aorta is the main artery in the body as it supplies oxygenated blood to all parts of the body. Aorta arises from left ventricle and opening of aorta is guarded by semilunar valves. Aorta consists of three parts: ascending aorta, arc of aorta, and descending aorta. So, somewhere artery and vein are similar in structure, but they vary in size. So, the histology of artery and vein is they are made up of three layers. Uppermost layer is known as tunica adventitia. Then, middle layer is known as tunica media, and the innermost layer is known as tunica intima. Moving to the next slide, systemic circulation, which is a part of blood circulation. So, this circulation involves blood supply to all parts of body except lungs. And it starts from aorta, which I already discussed in previous slides that it supplies oxygenated blood to all parts of the body. So aorta breaks up into smaller arteries and finally ends in capillaries. Moving to the next slide, these capillary unite to form venules which join up ultimately to form two large venous trunks, that is superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. These venous trunks directly opens in right atrium of the heart. Moving to the next slide, pulmonary circulation. It is a part of circulation which involves purification of blood in lungs. So, impure venous blood is pumped by right ventricle. So, from right ventricle, pulmonary artery carries this impure blood to lungs where it gets oxygenated. As I already discussed that oxygenation of blood takes place in lungs. From there, 4 pulmonary veins carry this purified blood from lungs to the heart. And these 4 pulmonary veins are directly open in left artery. Moving to the next slide, coronary circulation. This circulation involves blood supply to heart in itself. The right and left coronary arteries arises from ascending aorta. They supply blood to the heart. The venous blood, which is deoxygenated, is collected by coronary sinus, which opens in the right atrium. Moving to the next slide, cardiac cycle. It is the sequence of events which occur in the heart during a single beat. The rate of heart is 72 beats per minute in adult. So the time taken for 1 second is 0.8 seconds. So the sequence of events occur every 0.8 seconds. Cardiac cycle occur in 2 phases. First phase is systole and second is diastole. Systole, it is a period of contraction, and diastole, it is a period of relaxation. Moving to the next slide, the cardiac cycle of events occurs as following. You can see in this image, the total time period is of 0.8 seconds. So we will start with blood from veins fill the 2 atria. It means right atrium and left atrium. So blood from veins fill right atrium. There, superior vena cava and inferior vena cava fill the right atrium, and pulmonary veins, which are 4, they carry oxygenated blood and fill it with left atrium. This is followed by contraction in the atria. When these upper chambers are filled by blood, now the contraction in atrium chamber occurs. This leads to emptying of atrial blood into the respective ventricle through atrioventricular valves or AV valve. Means when contraction causes in atrium chamber, then the all blood reaches to the ventricle chamber through tricuspid valves and bicuspid valve, or you can say that AV valve, which is atrioventricular valves. Moving to the next slide. Now, when the ventricle chambers are full, they contract, and when they contract, blood present in ventricle is forced into systemic and pulmonary circulation. At this time, semilunar valves guarding the aorta and pulmonary valves which guards the pulmonary artery are open, and this is a period of muscular contraction of heart which is known as systole, because as I already mentioned that systole, it is a period of contraction. Moving to the next slide. Now, this is followed by period of rest, which is known as diastole. It means at this time, relaxation of heart occurs. During this period, there is no muscular contraction. Here you can see in this image, atrial systole, ventricle systole, and diastole. Moving to the next slide, I will more elaborate in terms of diagrams. So here, atrial systole means atrium chamber, that is right atrium chamber and left atrium chamber. They both fill with blood. Right atrium filled with venous blood. Left atrium filled with oxygenated blood. When they fill completely, so contraction arises and emptying of blood occur. At that time, all blood reaches to ventricular chamber. That is right ventricular chamber and left ventricular chamber. When all blood reaches to the ventricular chamber, then pulmonary valve which guards the pulmonary artery open and blood reaches to the pulmonary artery. Same side, aorta which is guarded by semilunar valves, blood reaches to the aorta through semilunar valves. At this time, contraction arises. Now, third phase is diastole. So, diastole at this time means relaxation of heart. It means no blood circulation occurs. Because as I already mentioned that there is no muscular contraction. At this time, relaxation occurs. So here, atrial systole, which is of 0.1 second, and ventricular systole, which is of 0.3 second. It means ventricular systole takes time for 0.3 seconds and atrial systole takes time for 0.1 second. Total time is 0.4 second. Atrial systole plus ventricular systole. When we combine both timings, it comes up 0.4 seconds. Now, diastole. So, at the diastole, our heart relaxes for 0.4 seconds. Total time duration is 0.8 seconds for this cardiac cycle. Moving to the next slide, conduction system of heart. See, heart has ability to contract and heart has ability to generate electrical impulses. So we will cover up in this slide. The impulses for cardiac contraction are transmitted through conduction system of heart. This system is made up of sino-arterial node, atrioventricular node, bundle of hairs, and Purkinje fibers. Now, The origin of impulses for cardiac contraction is at sinoarterial node. It is present at the opening of superior vena cava into the right atrium. It is present at the opening of superior vena cava into the right atrium. Now, the conduction of impulses occur in the following sequence. First, the origin of impulses for cardiac contraction is at the sinoarterial node, which is known as SA node. It is present at the opening of superior vena cava into the right atrium. This SA node is also known as pacemaker of heart. Then the impulses then passes to the passes through atrial muscles. Later on, the impulses pass to atrioventricular node. It lies in the upper part of atrioventricular septum. From here, the impulses passes to the bundle of hairs. It is a spatial bundle of nerve and muscles tissue. It is also the only muscular connection between the atria and ventricles. The bundle of hairs passes through the interventricular septum. Later, it divides into branches called Purkinje fibers. The right and left branches of this fiber supply the two ventricles. So here we have completed our conduction system of heart, and thank you.